off tonight's Evenings with Artifacts. We are thrilled you are joining us. It's Wednesday. Springtime, it must be Evenings with Artifacts. So tonight we are thrilled to bring to you a discussion on photos and legacy. And we have joining us tonight, Cathi Nelson, CEO of the Photo Managers, and Marci Brennan, founder and president of Past Present Pix. Cathi has had a long career in not just photos, but memory and legacy. She started as a photography. She fell in love with photography in high school and was the photo editor for school yearbook. Fast forward many years later, when her son joined their family, Cathi really developed a passion for creating life book photo albums, which led to scrapbooking. In 2009, she founded the Photo Managers, the world's leading educational community in the rapidly growing field of photo management. The Photo Managers serve photo management professionals around the world, thousands of do-it-yourselfers, and legions of people who want to hire certified professionals to help manage their photos and family heirlooms. Cathi is also the author of Photo Organizing Made Easy, Going from Overwhelmed to Overjoyed. And I can say it is a great book for those of you out there looking for a good read on this topic. And she's also the author on a business roadmap for professional photo organizers. Cathi remains firmly rooted in her vision to empower others to use visual storytelling as a means of preserving and sharing their personal life journeys. Cathi, before I jump in with Marci's intro, anything you'd like to add with regards to your background? Or
it's always so funny to hear your resume from somebody else, and you think, oh, I could have said it a little differently that way, but no. Thank you very much. I mean, I'm thrilled to be here. Yeah, I'm passionate. Really, I'm really just passionate about helping people tell their family stories or their business stories or any stories that they have, because I believe that we're a people of stories and we're wired to do that. And so the way I've focused on that in my career is through videos and photos and keepsake items, but and it's just a greatly expanding circle at this point of other professionals and people that are passionate about this topic. So
excellent. Well, thank you. We are thrilled you're with us tonight for Evenings. Yeah. And Marci Brennan. Marci is the owner and founder of Past Present Pix Photo Organizing. Her company specializes in helping busy families curate and safeguard their cherished family photos, memorabilia, and video collections. She and her company also ensure easy access and secure preservation for now and future generations. And I think that's where we want to kick off tonight's discussion, Marci. If you want to share a bit about yourself, your background, and what led you to start your company.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me. So as a quick aside, becoming an archivist was the thing I really wanted to do, the career I wanted when I was in my early 20s. However, I quickly learned that it required way more schooling than I could afford, so I had to find an alternative, and fast, right? I loved photography, and so I ended up working in photo labs throughout Boston as a custom printing technician, and I'm glad to see darkrooms and film and processing is making a comeback. It's the revenge of analog, right? So in the 90s, in 1994, around that time, my husband and I moved to New York City, and I got a job at the Bettman Archive as a photo researcher. And then I later transitioned when it became Corbis Images. Bill Gates bought us. I became a imaging licensing specialist. And during that time, I learned a lot about how the archivists at the archive worked, and did a lot of research on my own. And so I've incorporated all of that into my business. And I currently live in Queens with my husband, Chris, who's a videographer, and he works at billboard.com. And he brings his video, well, he's actually my part-time unpaid employee. And he brings his smarts into doing videos for our clients. And we're actually in the process of creating a legacy video for a family in Connecticut right now with our friends and partners, Katie and Nina from For the Record. And I'm really excited about this because the family is going to be getting not only a legacy film, but we're also doing a book, a photo book, and that's going to have all the photos that didn't make it and the stories that didn't make it into the video. And so they're going to have a multimedia legacy package for their families to enjoy forever. Print, video, sound, all of that. I think it's a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing, Marci. And what I love about your intro is the fact that you started off with that archival mindset, right? That was the driving, this is what I want to do. So I'd love to dive a bit deeper into that and specifically how you brought that into your business and what makes it unique when you're dealing with the photos and the legacy and also the memorabilia, since we know that our members have a lot of stuff and a lot of photos, and I suspect a lot of questions too.
Yeah. Well, you know, archiving is really, it's really very interesting. And you know, my approach is a little bit different than the way most photo managers work, because I focus on working with analog materials, first of all, and most archivists focus on analog materials. And in the photo manager community, we have people that focus on analog too, and digital, and do everything. And I've sort of transitioned into just physical items. So I follow the same workflows that professional archivists use, but adopted for family collections. And I use this, and this approach has obviously evolved over time. And I felt like I was so excited about getting to this point that I approached a colleague, Donna, and she's like, yeah, she's doing the exact same thing with her family collection, which is huge, by the way. She's got 150 boxes of stuff, photos, stuff she's inherited from her family, books, like, you name it. And so she's using this exact same process. And so we met and we thought we got to teach a class. So we taught a class to the photo managers at the conference, and we'll be doing the same thing at the virtual conference. So if you're interested and you want to go deeper, then you should join us. But really, I focus on the three things that are really important in archiving, and that's identifying what you have, preserving it, and then sharing it. And that's sort of the overarching theme of archiving. So you're going to always preserve, and then you're going to share. Does that help?
Sorry, I realized I was on mute. That does help. I'd love to know, so what are some of your tips or some of your, if you're just getting started, how do you start by preserving it and the sharing it? Like one of those, you know, if you had a top 1 or 2 or 3 tips per category, what do you help people think through and process when starting out?
Preserving. Oh God. So I could write a book on preserving. I live in a historic district, and so the house is old, the neighborhood is old, everything is old, and I like it that way. And I would advise clients to or anybody out there actually, to not use, you see these boxes in the background there, those yeah. Those are the boxes that we get from like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or one of those places. And they're fine to store anything but photos. So do not store your photos in those boxes, or plastic or PVC. Don't do that. You'll need to order boxes from places like Archival Methods or Gaylord or Talus, an online purveyor of museum quality archival goods like Hollinger Metal Edge. You know, those are the metal edge boxes. I wish I had some to show, but that's what you want to store your photos in. So like if you have photos in shoe boxes, get them out of the shoe boxes, get them into an archival shoe box, please. That's one thing you can do. The other thing to do is if you have digital photos, Cathy's going to be like, all together now, 3, 2, 1, backup. You have to do that. The 3, 2, 1 backup is the industry standard for saving digital photos. So
and what is that, Marci? You may be getting to this, but for those that don't know what 3, 2, 1 is, could you explain a bit about that, please?
Yes, it's 3 sources. So you're going to have one cloud source, one external hard drive, and maybe one hard drive on your, you know, your laptop or your home computer, your desktop. But you have it diversified, and if you have images backed up on an external hard drive, and I probably have one floating around here somewhere, you'll need to update that every 3 to 5 years because they do fail, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, the 3, 2, 1 backup, right? The idea is redundancy, and it's a lot of redundancy. At first it can feel overwhelming, but the purpose behind it is we know that we need, so 2 copies. So in other words, if your external hard drives falls off your desk and, people don't realize that there's disk spinning in there or something like that, it could, if all your photos are only on your external hard drive, or if they're only in one cloud storage, and for some reason that company decides to go out of business or hijack your photos and things like that. That's what Marci means, that redundancy, and having them the 3 places is really critical to, for the photos and the videos or any items that you care most about, right? That's what
yeah.
And then on the sharing side, Marcy, when you're thinking about, okay, we've taken steps to preserve, you've got the archival boxes for the photos, you've got them organized, you've now also ensured that they're adequately backed up, the 3-2-1 system. Now, when it comes time to share, what are your tips for people who have these collections or they've sorted through the photos, but they're not sure how to share with the story or share with the history to have that legacy effect?
So we're going to back up a second and say, once we've gotten to the preserved part of your analog stuff, you're going to have to scan it, but you have to figure out stuff requires scanning. And that's where the archival approach comes in. We're going to choose, items of enduring value to preserve only. And we're also going to look at things in groups, because groups tell a bigger story, right, than a single photograph. So if you have a wedding album, you're going to look at that as an entire story as opposed to just one photo from the wedding album. So just to make sure that I'm being clear on that. So
I love that. Thank you.
So once you've chosen everything that you want to scan, and it should only be actually about 5% of everything you've collected.
That's it.
You say I always do the 80-20, but I'm curious from your perspective. You say 5%, Marcy. No kidding. Okay, is that a standard in the archival industry? Or is it
5% of what you collect over the course of your life is worth preserving forever?
Hmm.
So you're going to really narrow
helps eliminate.
Because who wants to inherit 100,000 photos? Like nobody.
Nobody.
Right?
And this is actually a point that comes up when we talk with estate planners, when they are saying the executors of an estate, when you look at the entirety of 5, 6, 7,000 objects in a home, what percentage of those have any enduring value, sentimental or financial? It's back down into that same neighborhood Marcy's talking about, that 5% or less. And how do you know what that is?
It's tough to figure that out, and you have to have a heart-to-heart with yourself and the people around you about what you're going to preserve. So let's say you've got your collection down to a manageable size and it's scanned and it's backed up. How do you want to share it? Personally, I love sharing on family websites. I like to build them for my clients. I'm building one for my own family. We use SmugMug, but we also love permanent.org is a great resource. Photo books, not going to lie, my probably favorite thing to do. Print photo books with stories. Cathi has a couple of samples of beautiful photo books with stories. And some of my clients were like, oh, I don't need the story in there. I'm like, yes, you do. You need a story. Like, this isn't going to mean anything to anybody in 50 years. It's just a book, so you have to have stories in the books and names and places. So those are my two favorite ways, is online through family websites and printed through books.
Thank you. Ellen, do you have any questions for Marcy before we pop on over and do a deep dive into some examples Cathy's going to share to, I think, highlight the whole storytelling legacy and the importance of essentially using the photos you have to build a lasting legacy for you and your family?
Yeah, let's pop over to Cathi, actually. Cathi, hi.
Hello.
So you're putting Cathi into the spotlight, everyone, because what was really interesting as we were getting ready for this evening was, while we thought that we might have Marcy and Cathi both talking about structured approaches to working with photos and legacy, Cathi said, but hold on, I've had a lot of lessons learned when people have come to me, or she's had them come to her to tell her stories, to put her photos together to create things. So Cathi, do you want to start off with one of your stories, and then we'll kind of pick that one apart?
Yeah, I have a few, and one I wanted to share tonight was, though, this is recent. So, the shoemaker has no shoes, because that's not uncommon, because, we're all so busy. And so a year ago, when my son got engaged, I knew I wanted to create a video montage for him at the wedding. This was always something I've wanted my whole life. I wanted to have the photographs to music of him as a little boy growing up, and then her as a little girl growing up, and then them meeting, and then, not a dry eye in the house. Right. So I realized, well, to do that, I needed to get my photos organized in a way that I could find because that was a narrowing down of thousands and thousands of photos. So I had all my photos scanned, and then I worked with a professional photo organizer to do that actually for me. So I just didn't have the time to do it myself. I know how to do it. I just knew I wasn't going to ever get the time to do it. And it was so worth it. And then from that recently, that video is amazing. And I have some great, it's a great video. I have beautiful photos of them seeing it. They didn't know what I was doing. They didn't know, they had an idea and things like that. It was really hard to get the photos from her family. I finally met an aunt because they said, oh, the parents didn't take that many photos. And then at the wedding shower, I met the aunt who took all the photos. And so she fortunately put together, they sent me like an external hard drive in the mail that I had to go through. And then it took a lot of time too. It's time consuming to go through somebody else's. I felt like I'd got to know my daughter-in-law though, by looking at all about her because I got to look at all her childhood photos and see so many things about her that were similar. But what I really wanted to talk about tonight was that then because I had all my photos digitized and then also then with the metadata and things, my little rescue dog that I loved dearly, that I had rescued off the highway 15 years ago, died in November this year suddenly. And this little guy she's sitting next to me, she's my newest one, but anyway, right, Mama Mia? So I always knew that I wanted to have an album. There's a member, one of our professional photo managers makes albums of families with pets, and which I always was really intrigued by. And I knew there was only one pet I would ever pay anybody to make an album for. And this was my little dog, Wiley, right? And so this is the album. So what was really fascinating to me about this experience though was Lisa called and she set up 3 different appointments with me. So I sent her, you're able to go in and find dog, and it was a pretty, not that hard, cat, right? You can now find all your photos with metadata, with tagging them like that. And I sent her, I don't know, I'd have to ask her 2,000 or 3,000 crazy number of photos that I had. And then she set up and did 3 different interviews with me. And what was amazing was through that interview process, she started asking me a lot of questions about how did I meet Wiley. And so I ended up doing, a whole series that she wrote here, what it is about Wiley that I loved, right? What do I think of about the way he, he'd follow me with my eyes. He knew where I was at all times. Nobody ever has loved me as much as this little dog did, because I had pulled him off the highway and it was like, are you my mother? And I was like, yes, you're my mother. And so everybody knew that story. And then though, what she did was she made a timeline for me of all the different pets of my life, which blew me away. So this is like my childhood dog, all the way to the little guinea pig that my daughter had when she was, I was allergic to, because we only could keep for a little bit of time. And then she kept asking me more and more questions. And so what she was doing was recording all that. And she turned around and came back to me with this amazing book that tells the story of the animals of my life. And so they are all journaled with the different dogs that we've had, in my kids, and then in their stages of growing up, because this is the guy who got married. And then he gets added to the book later with his pets that he has, because of course he's a dog lover and a dog owner now. And then, let's see if I'm doing this justice. And then my brother, and then my mom and my sister, because she's like, well, why are these pictures of who are all these other people's dogs? I'm like, oh, well, that's my sister's dog. That was my mother's dog. And the reason I'm telling you this story about that is that I joke I want this at my funeral. Suddenly, I went from thinking I was just going to get a photo book of pictures of my little dog. By asking the right questions and pulling out the stories from me, I have this tapestry of things that I hold, of the pets I hold and I wouldn't like introduce myself as an animal lover. I mean, obviously they're around me. I love my animals in my life, but I don't think I haven't really thought of it that way and necessarily, but we were able to weave together a really beautiful story about just these different pets, how they've come into our life. We tend to rescue it a lot. And that's just an example of the 5%, Marci, right? That's a 5% I didn't even know was there necessarily, but somebody took the time to ask me the right questions, that the 5% suddenly became something that was it. So that's as much as I I'll let you ask me some questions about that if you want.
Well, Cathi, one of the things that pops right away about that is the fact that it was elicited by reviewing an abundance of photos and identifying those themes, but also the integration of that timeline approach, which actually adds humor, but also brought other people into your equation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talk about your daughter's pets, and I think that's a really, really interesting. And I wonder about the person who you worked with that you're referencing. Is this something that they specialize in specifically?
Yeah. Her name of her company is I should know it off the top of my head. Once Upon a Tale, TAIL, photo books. And she joined as a photo manager, like Marci knows her. She happens to be in Brooklyn, but she joined during COVID. I think she was an architect or worked in the architect field and loved animals. But she didn't know she was going to specialize into just helping people with their pets. But that's become her, I think, just over time. Like Marci realized, you know what? I really know I want to work with analog photos as more with my archivist hat on. I'm not interested in the digital, right? So people kind of find their areas of interest and expertise, I think is how that, yeah. So this is an area that she has focused on, but I think it's you can do it for yourself, even if you think by putting on a different hat, right? And thinking differently about your photos or any of your collections, right? When you're looking at Marci, you had a good term too. What was the word that you used about the 5% is the what? Or in any collection, or maybe Ellen, you said it, there's only
A capsule collection?
Yeah. Or Ellen, what was where you said when we have all that stuff, only 5% is actually
It had the enduring value.
Enduring value. That's a good term. I like that. Enduring value,
I
right?
stole it from Marci, so there we go.
Oh, it's a good term, enduring value.
We say it slightly differently, but I'm adopting it. Marci, we're all quoting you now.
The other thing what this proved to me, which is something I've said, I always say we have a story to tell. I've always taught people to organize their photos, not necessarily chronologically, if they didn't keep them in chronological order to begin with. This is really your analog collection. With digital today, because everything's dated, it's not that difficult. But so many people, I think, get frozen in indecision, and they never can really go through those boxes because they just dumped everything in there and they think, oh no, I'm really messed up because here's Johnny when he's Christmas 1993. And then there's another picture of it's 1962, with me, with my, when I was a child, and they think, oh no, I have to it's too much of a mess. And I always thought, well, I love to say that we remember, we live in daytime order. Today is a Wednesday in April, May 1st is coming, but we think and remember chronologically, and thematically, right? And so this book of the pets in my life is really a book of themes. It's the themes in here are, the unconditional love of animals, the way animals are just present with us, the joy and the funny things that they do, the way that we all probably talk to our animals like they're our babies or whatever. And we all probably have doggy voices animal voices that we might use if you're an animal person. So that's a theme. These photos didn't have, this is not in real chronological order, this. And then there's a cat too. We do have a cat. So I have to mention that, we have a cat. And so
we won't hold it against you if you're dog lovers, but
we have both. So we dog and the cat is a very important part of our lives as well. But the dog he was afraid of the cat. So of course the cat is completely confident and sitting on the bed.
That is the best photo.
She's a great photo editor and able to see that. But
Cathi, when you created that book, returning to the 5% concept, how do you apply that to your own photos and curating? And it's one thing to take away bad photos and dedupe, like take away duplicates, etc. Now that you have a project like that, you've honed in on these particular photos of value and you've told this story in this beautiful book. Help people understand, what happens to all the other photos? How do you realistically break through that chaos? Are those photos stored separately in a special folder now and they become relevant in that way? Because I think that 5% thing has caught people's attention.
I've always said 20, but I'm going to get much more serious because I really think 5 is really truly, I've been afraid to tell people 5 because I think they would really panic because I feel like 20 is kind of, okay, I can breathe through that. I think really the key here is, and I think where Artifact also, give a plug out to Artifact comes in, is right. The idea that you need a place where the things that you care most about are stored, and the rest, I do have them. In my iCloud library and on my external hard drive and things like that. I don't mind. I'm not going to. Fortunately, with digital photos, I don't have to delete them. I do need to get much more serious about eliminating the analog photos and being brutal and throwing those away. But I haven't done that. It just, again, it's a time thing, but it's something I need to do because it's not fair to my kids for them to inherit what they have. I've also digitized all my scrapbook albums and things like that. So that, because I know that this next generation don't want these big, heavy, beautiful scrapbooks that I spent, days and months and a year on creating for them. Is really, and it's got a lot of storytelling in it, but those pages need to be digitized, and then they can also be reprinted in a smaller digital format than the big, heavy photo books that they were.
And only
So
one person has those. So, and there's the risk of them being damaged and lost. And we did put a link into chat, folks, about scrapbooks and resources that we curated. So we hope that will help. There are some questions in chat. Heather, do you want to pop to those?
Yes, I was gonna pop over. I think Cathi, how you just ended about the digital collections and how sometimes that next generation may not either know what to do with them or want the entire collection. We've got a question from one of our audience members, and they ask, how do you realistically get someone to get down to the 5% of photos? With things digitized, people feel like they can now keep it all, but who's going to go through them all? Have you seen that having an external view, i.e. photo manager or organizer, is that independent view to show how a third party will actually care about it? If you down select the important ones, do people actually delete all the rest, or how do they handle those extras? And I think either one of you feel free to jump in, but I think that touches on a lot of what you were just talking about, Cathi.
is the main question, I
I
think
think
that,
there's three parts. There's the how do
Yeah.
you get down to the 5%? I think there's also the how do you get someone to, I think, like get there on their own? Do you bring in an outside third party to help with that? And then once they've gotten there, what do you do with the rest? Like, do you keep them? Do you trash them? How do you go about if you're looking to pare down the collection?
yeah. I'll answer then. Marci, why don't you answer? I'm sure you might, because Marci works directly with clients at this point. I support clients. I started doing this that way, but I also read so much and think so much about it. I think from the 5% is, how do you bring yourself to get to the 5%? For me, I think it has to be in terms of those themes. Like if you had to sit down and just ask yourself, what are the themes of, or if you look at again, we're back into photos, right? I know that when you open up a box of photos, I've done this with thousands of customers, and I'm sure Marci has as well. It's not a mystery of what people take photos of, honestly. We're really not that unique and different all over the world. We take photos of birthdays, key celebrations, Christmas, whatever you celebrate, Thanksgiving, probably first day of school, life events, weddings, births, first day, like I said, first day of school, a lot of seasonal vacations. Where did you all, did you grow up every year? I live in Connecticut. So the Cape Cod, the coast of Maine, these would be very common places that people go to. Maybe they go camping, and it's just really, I mean, it's really, that's what people then I always say the people we love and the people who love us. So pictures of family and friends and things like that. So if you start to think of your life in terms of what are the themes that you would want to share with a family member, know that we're a family that love to celebrate, right? I know one family that 4th of July every year, I think it's now their 3rd generation, they go to the beach house and there's a parade and so they have lots of photographs about that. So how can you if that's a family tradition and a theme, then how can you just take the 5% of the photos of those over the years of that experience and curate that piece of the collection, right? So it's 5% within that story. Then I think you're getting your arms around it in a better way. That would be my recommendation, how to think about it.
Yeah, you
But
can
Marci, how do you tell people? Yeah.
capsule collection, so I don't even tell people, you don't have to delete your digital photos. I mean, I wish you would, because it's not good to have all that stuff. But if you want to hold on to it, fine. Let's just create a capsule collection. That is the 5%. And the stuff that is really going to tell your family's story, the story of who you are, the story of your values, what you want to hand down. Because as Rhonda Chadwick, I love this book. She spoke to us as a photo manager. She talked about baby 2135. Like, what is that baby born in that year going to take away from what you've saved? And again, baby 2135 does not want 100,000 digital photos and boxes and boxes of unsorted slides and stuff. So, it's in the archival world, it's called deaccessioning, and you really have to be pretty brutal about what you're not keeping. Like, is this telling the story? Yes or no? And like Cathi has the 2-second rule. Cathi inadvertently stumbled upon the idea of enduring value with her ABCs. And Cathi, maybe you can share with everybody.
I know, it's so funny. I didn't know. Yeah, maybe, but when I first started this, people, which really this came out of a friend, I was an early adapter to digital technology. So I was the person that my friends would call, can you teach me how to email a photo? And then somebody finally said, what do you charge to come to my house? And I was like, I don't charge anything. And she was like, you have to charge. And we, typical. And I paid a residential organizer. I'm like, what is that? So I got to her house, and then she wanted me to make an album of her parents had passed away. She had boxes of photos she had inherited. She really wanted me first to help her get the photos from her memory card to her computer, because her kids were in middle school. Now one's a parent and grandparent, they're married now and things. But anyway, I said, well, I can't make that album of your dad who passed away I have to organize your photos first, because it's a narrative. It needs a beginning, middle, and end. I need to tell, if I'm going to tell a story about your dad, I need to have some kind of, and so I called myself a photo organizer. And then when people started asking me, I created this acronym called the ABCs of photo organizing to help people get a visual of what I was talking about. So the A is it archival worthy? Is it album worthy? Are they your best photos, right? Those are the A photos that you choose. The B is, well, it's really hard to make that decision, right? So we put those back in the box, or those are the secondary photos. And I always joke, if you're going to put them back in the box, put a note on the box that says, if I pass away and you've inherited these boxes, you may throw them away. I couldn't, but you can. Because too many times people inherit boxes of photos and they save those as well. And they don't know who anybody in is, but they feel it's just a whole interesting psychological study on why it's so hard to throw photos away. I just think, it's just fascinating. I've thought about that a lot and asked people over the years, why is it so hard to do that? The C is, yes, you can throw photos away in the garbage can, right? And I say, your dud, your blurries, your secondary shots, scenery shots, be brutal about vacation travel photos. It's probably not as safe to say now. I used to always say, well, the Coliseum will look the same, 100 years from now. Who knows? With climate change, it may look a little different, but we only need one photo from, maybe the Coliseum. But what you want to save are the S photos, those that tell a story. So A, B, C, S. Does the photo tell a story? Does a photo of your dad making a really silly face that I might look at and think that's a bad photo? You might be like, no, don't throw that away, because no, that's the face my dad made that made me crazy when I was a teenager. But today I'd give anything to see that silly face, right? So that's the ABCs of photo organizing, to kind of get your arms around it a little bit more.
That's awesome. Thank you, Cathi. We've got a couple more questions in here. One is, several people have asked, could you give us a sense of the general cost involved with the projects you've mentioned? Cathi, the photo book of Wiley, and then Marci, the legacy videos and the books that you typically do. We know no two projects are exactly the same. So I think our viewers are really curious, like what is involved in this?
Cathi,
I'll be honest with this. This was close to probably a couple $1,000s, but to me, again, it was, I knew that I was getting into that price range when I kept adding, when I kept getting her to continue. You could do it for less than that, but again, and then even getting all my photos organized and digitized, I forget, well, with the digitized too, there can be a $2,500, $4,000, kind of $5,000 project. To me, it's priceless. I'm so thrilled that I've had it done. So you can do it over time. Like with the scanning, I did piece that out month by month. It wasn't like I paid it all up at once. I did one album at a time over the course of like 9 months to just kind of piecemeal it out. But now it's done and I have everything in a way that I want it. So, and it can be much more than that. People can spend thousands of dollars more than that as well. So I don't know, Marci,
That's right in the ballpark, because, people don't realize, it's not just scanning. The scanning is a very small part of it. It's the collecting of the albums. It's the cataloging and inventorying everything. If you have sticky albums, we need to remove those photos from your sticky albums because they are chemical sandwiches and they're terrible for your photos. So we have to take care and try and get those photos out of there. I have a couple of them right behind me. So all that takes time. And if you just have a regular photo album, taking them out. If you have slides, if you have negatives, scanning those, it's pretty tedious. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work and people don't typically want to do that. And then they hear, oh, somebody can do it for me. Great. But then they're like, it costs a lot of money. Well, it takes a lot of time.
I always say, the funny thing about the money, first of all, if your house burned down, or if, we know that what would you pay to get it all back, right? If all your photos were lost on an external hard drive, but somebody, well, and that's expensive. I got to tell you, if you send it out to some of those companies who can, that costs a lot of money to get, you would be like, I'd pay anything to get all that back. Right. And also how much did it cost? How much has been invested in all those memories over the course of time anyway, right? It is a pretty timeless, it's an investment that we've done, but there is a psychological piece for some people sometimes.
I think that like you can economize. Like, I totally get it. I like a bargain too, but you know, there's some things I'm going to economize on and some things that I'm going to be like, you know what, this is worth spending the money on because it's really important to me and I'm paying it forward. So that's how I think people should maybe think about
And
it.
like the book with, for this, like like I said, as much as I love Ali and Mama Mia, who were just here, there's no way I would have bought it. You know, there's a whole story about how, when I found Wiley and what that rescue experience was like. That's all in this book. That then did kind of have a lot of themes in my life that I didn't, but that then I'm thrilled I paid. It was the best money I ever spent, was to give Lisa ask me those questions, because that's what she's passionate about. And so she wasn't asking those questions out of a rote. She was asking because she really cared and then really listened. And it was really it's really nice to be listened to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love, like, I think that's so true. And Marcy, I want to key on what you said. It's a gift that you're paying it forward. And when we were at the Photo Managers Conference, I shared a story about 2 photos. One, complete mystery to me. Photo of my mother, no idea. Photo of my father, the second story, used to be a complete mystery until 2 months ago. And I now have the story. And not only that, but I have him telling me the story, and he recorded the audio when he artifacted it. So my daughter, it's now no longer a mystery to me or my daughter. We now have a really amazing story in his own voice, which that's going to last for generations. Like, she'll be able to tell her kids, and they'll be able to hear who is then their great grandfather telling the story behind the photo. So I think it's so true. When you take the time to tell the story and to document it, it really does become a gift to the next generation. When you whittle it down to that 5%, you're no longer leaving your family, boxes and boxes and bins of essentially mysteries or unsolved puzzles to piece together. It's so important. I do want to, Marcy, we got a very specific, oh, sorry, Cathi, did you want to jump in?
I was going to say something about with that art, because I know that we're not, but with what's been amazing was with a app like Artifct too, is that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we would tell people, well, you can get a tape recorder or whatever, and then some of the apps on your phones existed, and I wish I know I taped my aunt somewhere along the way, but we didn't have like the technology today that gives you that opportunity to tell that story with that item in one place is miraculous. It's not. We shouldn't assume, this is still very new that we can do that. So I just want to point that out. It wasn't this easy 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Yeah.
Technology has definitely helped, I think. It's also, on the flip side, given us so many options, and in some ways created a lot of digital choice, which may lead to digital paralysis, which is where, again, I think having someone like a photo manager or an organizer help you go through this, it could be that kind of the ignition that just jumpstarts it all. Marcy, we did have a very specific question for you. Judy wanted to know, do you ever work with genealogists in your projects? And do you, or can you get a family tree into the photo book?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that was an easy yes.
Absolutely.
Well, we've got another couple of questions. Sorry, we've got a bunch here. I want to make sure I get to them. We've also got, is there a list of the great questions to ask, like Cathi is talking about? So the questions, Cathi, that helped you elicit the story in your book. Is there a resource that you've used, or just questions that you like, either of you like, when you're working with families to help them tell the story? I know Ellen popped a couple of links in the chat, but what do you all use? How do you approach that?
Well, usually I just let the client talk because they're usually so excited about this project, and I normally don't work with people in their homes. I will take their stuff back to my home office and work on it, because they tend to, like, as Cathi has noted, like, fall down that rabbit hole of like, oh, this photo and blah, 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 blah. Then we're never going to get anywhere. But it's also important to keep track of those stories. So we have to, do half and half. My friend and colleague, Katie, who I work with, who's a journalist, has, and she's sharing with me her best method for getting these stories out of clients. And it's just something she's honed over the years. So she shared it with me, and I'm using it now with my clients to try to get those stories out, because a lot of them, even though they like to talk about what's happened, they're a little bit more, I don't know, they're not quite as eager to have it written down in the photo book. So it's a little bit of a learning curve for them. And I have a couple of books with text in them, and I'm excited to work on this book that I'm doing now for this client who we're doing the film for. but it's kind of a hard sell with people, and I'm not really sure why. You know,
Sometimes questions can be, I think, almost intimidating or overwhelming. What we have heard time and again from our members is that sometimes they feel there's a storyboard and they have to get it right. If you ask a big question, they sit there and think, and they're like, oh my gosh, what if I say the wrong thing, or what if I forget something? So one approach that we've taken over the years has been to start with really simple questions like, what is this? Or even who is this? Because sometimes one generation removed, you may not know who's in the photo. And then ask, when you get through the basics, like the what, the who, the where, then asking why, like, why have you kept this? Why do you have this? But we're a big fan of kind of the 5 W's, just because sometimes if you sit down and what we've seen is you ask someone, tell me your life story. They kind of look at you and they're like, oh my gosh, where do I start? And it's awesome. If they love to talk and they get talking, awesome. But sometimes we get people who are just like, it terrifies them to answer that. So I do love I love how you guys, when we've been talking before, how you've explained it, picking out again those capsule moments or those capsule themes or those things to get them talking. I think breaking it down to smaller bits can really help someone get started.
I think, and then like the idea of like family traditions, or, you know, that idea, well, they might not even know, do we have it? I don't know if we had any family traditions. Well, what did you do for vacations? You know, tell me about your family vacations. Oh, you know, and then suddenly there's like, you know, there's excitement usually, or there's like a memory that'll trigger, or and I think what's interesting in some ways, probably with the pets more than I realized, is that it was like a back door. I would not want to, I couldn't, people say, oh, I should tell the story of the photo managers. And I get like, immediately I can feel paralyzed. Like, oh my gosh, I got all the stuff downstairs. Where do I start? What was day one? Where's my journals? I can't, I almost like freeze. But it was so amazing this, by coming in around animals, suddenly my brother's in here, you know, and my, who's passed away. I mean, my parents, it's just it was kind of a new way into telling a story, because it was just easier, because you're talking about something that you love or that you care about.
Yeah.
So I hope
Yeah.
that helps.
I love that. We do have a quick question from Sharon, the 5 W's. So who is this? What is this? Where is it? When could be another great question, because sometimes you may know looking at a photo, but other times Ellen's got this photo. She knows it's old. She knows it's probably turn of the century. It's 2 men on old-fashioned bikes, but she doesn't know when. And the when could really help pinpoint like who in the family it is. And then last but not least, why. But the who, what, when, where, and why are the 5 W's. I do want to quickly, we had another question come in about, this is more on the technical side, but what are your preferred or favorite flash drives and hard drives you've used? What do you recommend?
SanDisk is what I tend to use. And we got One World Computing, and NVMe drives are also, they're about $500. They hold a lot of information. They're awesome.
It's fascinating, the topic. We just did a webinar, and it's going to be actually a public one, but hard drives, NAS, and something, oh my, and it was pretty fascinating. I didn't know all the things about, you know, what's different hard drives have different, better, you know, when do they have to be replaced, and what's the quality of one and stuff. So that's quite a topic in some ways. It's amazing, you know, technology keeps changing, right? Too. That's the thing. You have to, it's not like done today. We can't think, oh, I'll just back everything up on this external hard drive and then I'm done for the rest of my life on that. That you can't think that way anymore. You have to kind of keep upgrading your storage
Technology changes so fast. And,
yeah.
you know, we think about like even, you know, a couple like decades ago, like my daughter today, if she sees a floppy disk, she has no idea what it is, like absolutely no clue. And I don't think I'm that old, but if you ask her, I'm ancient. So we have to always adapt, I think, like kind of like the technology and the how we're doing it. So that's a great resource. Thank you, Cathi, for sharing that. And thank you, Marci, for the recommendations. Hopping over to, I think, what may be a slightly harder question, one that certainly has me stumped. Can you advise on how a person might approach deciding on 50 carousels of slides? What do you do?
Well, take them out of the carousels first. Well, I would if I was given take them out of the carousels. I don't have samples of the boxes, but Archival Methods makes these really nice, like long, narrow metal
Yeah.
edge boxes. You can store them in that, or you can store them in the old school print file, clear slide holders and put them in a binder. I would only recommend doing that if you plan on looking at them, but if you plan on scanning them and then storing them, that's what you should do. And they'll take up a whole lot less room. Contact Archival Methods. They will hook you up.
Awesome.
Also, I mean, I think I recommend digitizing those slides, but
Yeah, of course.
yeah, and you knew that, right? But maybe they don't want to start with, the hard thing is you don't know what's in all those slides. And that's a tough one because most people don't have the old slide carousels to go through anymore.
Well, Lightbox, we
But I
have
was going to say Lightbox, yeah.
iPad, you can use that as a Lightbox. You're gonna have to look at them.
And then you could just get a marker and, and put a little check mark or something along, on the ones that you want. Or just have them all done and then you can decide, you can do it after the fact. So
Yeah,
one way or the other.
That's a great point, Kathy. People often ask, like with negatives and slides, like, I don't know what's in here. I don't have time to look at them. Photos are a little bit easier. And so there's two schools of thought. Either you go through them and you decide what you want to have done. That's going to take you time, or you have them all scanned and you may end up, throwing money away, but those are your choices. It's like, there's no.
And a slide, just so they know, but the reproduction of a slide image is so much more powerful than a print because it's the original quality of the, so the colors can be much more vibrant and it can actually be a much better quality scan than it would be if it was from a print.
A negative would do that. A slide is a positive to it, so you wouldn't make a print from a slide, technically. The prints come from negatives.
Oh, right. Did I say that wrong? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Yeah.
Darkroom girl here.
And I do want to flag, I put into the chat a while ago, I can put it back in, but if you go to artifacts.com, we have an allies and stuff page, and Archival Methods is there, and they have a discount code that you can use to redeem whenever you make a purchase there. So we love our friends over at Archival Methods. So I just want to make sure people saw that.
It's US based in Rochester. They did it for our conference. They did a great video about the whole manufacturing process, which was amazing because we talk so much these days about technology and digital thing, AI and things you're not seeing, and then to see an actual warehouse where how they build the box, how they ship the box. It's pretty fascinating.
Amazing. I was just on a call with their team this morning and they're expanding gangbusters. I think that there's something really important and the reason why we work with them so much is it is beautiful that you're taking care of these cherished items, but please let your loved ones know what they are. If you give me a box and it has a dress in it, I'm going to be mad because I won't know what the dress is. I will only know it wasn't important enough to put it in the box. Super. Right. What is it? And I think that goes with the photos. If you get one of those photo boxes that they have as kind of a temporary as you're working through digitizing and everything like that, or to hold them and you've got them nicely sorted, why did you pick those? Like, I think that we say ad nauseum, photos can't talk. We can animate them in sort of creepy ways, but Harry Potter does it better. But anyway, if you got these photos that you've streamlined, let people know what the stories are.
I have another quick tip on that too. And then I know I see some more great questions coming in, but another way that I've helped people when they think about the themes, like what I did for the slideshow for my son, cause I got overwhelmed, right. Is I sent out a note to all his best friends and his sister and us, what are the 3 words you would use to describe Joshua? And then I had the same thing done for Kate. And then I found the photos that demonstrated that. So I think for Joshua, it was intense, mischievous, and adventurous. I think those may have been his 3 words. So of course I could see from the time when he was a little boy, that when he was adventurous and mischievous and then probably throwing a temper tantrum or whatever. And Kate, I think, was silly, whatever. And so then I found the photo and I said that, these are the 3 words to describe you. And I've done that with parents when I was doing albums when their kids were in college, but they wanted to do their baby. I'm like, well, what are 3 words to describe Andrew when he was little? And then, they don't change much. We don't change all that much. So then you can go look for those photos that kind of hold up to that kind of storytelling. And that's another way to kind of simplify this and come to that 5%.
And actually that's I'm going to out Ellen for a moment. She has a phenomenal artifact that is.
Which one is it?
I think it was your kindergarten teacher.
Oh, that is a good one.
And it proves to an absolute T that has not changed at all. that she already, I think it was your report card or progress report, Ellen. Feel free to share.
My kindergarten teacher on the back of the report card in the first quarter was saying, she's got a little bit too much energy and she talks a bit too much and da, 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 da. And by the fourth quarter, at the end of the year, the teacher says, she has great energy and contributes to the class. And, so I turned her over. But, if you take that to like professional feedback that I get, it's kind of the same. My best friend originally at work was like, I didn't think I liked you. No one can be that happy and energetic. And then, years in, I realized that's just who you are. And I love you to death. So, who you are can be elicited from all of these things. And it's a lot of fun. Heather, should we go? We do have a question. We had an article related to this, and Cathi and some photo managers contributed to it. This is a sticky issue, and literally sticky. When negatives get wet.
Can I?
Yes.
So when anything gets wet, your photos, your negatives, your like anything, don't mess with it. Bring it to a conservator. Bring it to somebody who can handle wet items, because you will introduce mold into your home and into your body. You don't want that. So I've had clients come to me saying, "Oh, these were in a flood from Hurricane Sandy. I'm like, no. That's where I draw the line. You have to go to a pro. Don't. Call the pros.
But you can't put them in, right, with photos. You can't put them in big plastic bags and put them in the freezer.
You actually shouldn't do that.
Why is that? We've always
I know, but it's like I've spoken to several conservators. They're like, oh, people will like use heat. They'll use because different prints and different types of photos react differently to cold, and they react differently to heat, and so you could inadvertently damage them. So you don't necessarily know, especially if you have vintage photos, how they're going to react to that sort of cold. So.
And this might, Marci, be a point of distinction of we all have to make trade-offs. How much money and time and resources are you willing to commit? In the best of worlds, you're going to take it to someone that has a professional background in archival conservation and preservation. And if you're like, I don't think I love these anyway, but I'm going to give it a try, that's something different. And you're going to have to draw those lines yourselves, because it won't be all of them necessarily that make that cut.
Right. I still wouldn't put them in a freezer though.
Well, I think we should have a photo managers conference session on that. I did talk with photo fans.
I know, because many of them are ours that have managed, especially like down in Naples. And
Yeah.
But anyway, but that's.
But that's fascinating. And maybe there is an evolution there. The article we put in chat about water damaged photos, it speaks to someone that's been working with that. And I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's awful though when things get damaged, and it's just, the only thing you can do is if they're, scan them, if they're not horrible, scan them and try to recreate them, and I don't love AI for a lot of reasons, but I also love AI for helping us recreate old photos. Damn photos.
I think we have time for one more question. We've got one about what's the best way to preserve old videos?
Get them digitized.
First thing I would say is you have to digitize them to a video file format. And that's one of those things about changing technology. We did all our home family movies onto DVDs probably 10, 15 years ago. And then who has a DVD player anymore? So we had to redo them all, right? Because so a movie file, right? Marci, that's what and then from there, there's a great company called Projector that we've gotten to know, which is like Netflix for your home movies, which is so much fun. You can upload all your home movies into this, and there's an app on your smart TV, and you can sit and watch your home movies on your TV. It's wonderful.
I mean, what's better than that, right? Family movie night, popcorn, like you get to relive these old memories. And that's really where people get super excited, is seeing old home movies. They're like, oh, see this. And you can put soundtracks to it if there's no sound. I mean, you can have so much fun with that stuff.
And I want to tell people, I put a link in the chat about this as well. I digitized my family's home videos last summer. Okay, I just want to say, hurry, right? They are degrading, actively degrading. The sound, the color, all of that. They are ticking time bombs. They are not meant to last. How old am I? I'm 44 years old. These videos of mine from when I was younger than 10 were already heavily degrading. Like, you need to move on those with urgency if you want to save them.
Yeah.
VHS is really delicate.
Yeah, film was a much lot better. If they were on old, 8mm film from like the 60s, they have a better chance than the tape. Tape has deteriorated much quicker. And people have no idea about that. I forget, I once knew the statistics of how many VCR tapes were sold at that time, but it's an astronomical number, and it's really fun to see them.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. I think any way you can tell your story, be it photos, be it video, be it a photo book. I mean, I think, again, taking the time to connect the dots, because we said it earlier, photos can't talk, your stuff can't talk. Yes, your videos can talk, but taking out of context, you don't know why was that moment recorded versus all the other moments. So I think one of the key points here is to really take the time to tell the story. Take the time to whittle down the collection. So you have your capsule moments, your capsule photos, your capsule videos, whatever it happens to be. And really take time, I think, to don't be a mystery to the next generation. Like, we are alive today. We have our stories. Tell them, preserve them, share them. Use the tips that Marci shared with how to preserve and how to share. I think take some of Cathy's lessons learned and things that really brought her joy to see how can we incorporate them into what we do with the photos we have. And the photos we will be having, since we were all set to inherit them, we take them every day. It's a big part of our lives. So anyways, we are running right up on time. I want to say thank you very much for attending tonight's Evenings with Artifacts. A very big thank you to Cathi and Marci. We will be, of course, posting the recording to our YouTube channel tomorrow. We have the links to Cathi and the photo managers and Marci's Past Present Pix as well. Marci has also put together a phenomenal handout for us tonight. We'll be sharing that. Alan just popped that into chat. That will also be available on their website and along with the video as well. We encourage you, if you have further questions or want to learn more about working with Cathi or Marci, please reach out to them direct. They've been an amazing resource for us as we tackle the world of stuff and definitely the world of photos. And if you're joining us next week, we have a special surprise in store. We are bringing on the Loose Ends Project, which is a very special organization. They help finish unfinished textile projects. So think about knitting, crocheting, even needlepoint of those who you've lost a loved one. So if that is something that is of interest or inspiration, please join us next week to learn from them what they do, how they do it, and how you can help, again, create and further legacy based on textile projects. So with that, we want to say thank you all again. Thank you, Cathi. Thank you, Marci. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. And until next week, thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Bye, Marci. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.